and welcome to UFO Update Live. We have an extraordinary collection of stories for you this time. We have an abduction case with comments from a hypnotherapist. We have updates on the ongoing Mars investigations to see if we've solved mysteries or simply discovered some more. Local investigations from the tri-state area. We've also looked at an unusual rock placement in Indiana. I think you'll be intrigued by what you see. Moorhead, Kentucky has had its whole raft of sightings that we're going to be looking at. There have been odd creatures seen in Indiana, so stay with us. We've got quite a show for you. So hang in there with us. Thank you. With me tonight to explore some of these unusual cases is Donnie Blessing,
Hi.
a local UFO investigator who works extensively with Kenny Young, and Dale Farmer, amateur astronomer who's going to help me decipher some of the interesting things that we're seeing in the sky and the ongoing investigation into Mars. And in fact, that's what we're going to start with right now. We've had an unusual amount of data coming in from the Spirit and Opportunity rovers. They've been equipped to handle all kinds of different scientific experiments. They've also been designed so that they can photograph Martian features with clarity and resolution hitherto unattainable by the technology that we've previously sent. And remember, when we talked about the face on Mars in the past, one of the biggest problems was the resolution, how clear the pictures could get. And to a great degree, the amount of data that you can get determines the interpretations that you can make. And one of the images, or several of the images that have come back from Mars, seems to indicate there's a possibility of fossil evidence of life having existed in the ancient Martian past. Now, there's quite a bit of debate surrounding these findings, and Dale Farmer here will help me comment on some of the things that we'll be showing you on the screen here. As you can see from this image, the rovers on Mars are really quite alien-looking in their own right, looking like something out of a modern science fiction movie. This next image shows you the unparalleled resolution that of imagery coming back from Mars. This is from the region where Spirit was landed. This is the Gusev crater area, and you can see that there's broken rock interspersed with sand and dust. Opportunity was set down in the Meridiani area, which is an equatorial region in Mars, and quite a different landscape as you see on this image, where there's actually some exposed bedrock that could give us some clues to the evolution of Mars as a planet. Specifically, the experiments and the instrumentation has been designed to detect whether or not liquid water at one time flowed on Mars. This is a very important observation to make. Liquid water implies an environment that could support life. And first on the list of things to look for is hematite, and it's an iron mineral that aggregates in a watery environment, but it could also be produced by volcanic activity, and we know that Mars at one time was volcanically active. So finding hematite gives us some insight into what's going on, but we still largely have to determine if the hematite is water-related or volcanically produced. But we have seen other evidence that support a watery time on Mars in Mars past, and the image towards the bottom right-hand part of the screen indicates layering that's caused by water laying down dissolved sedimentations. This next slide gives you an even better impression of that kind of layering that can only occur when water is depositing sediments in. This slide shows an image sent back by the Spirit and I think it was Spirit? Dale?
I thought it was
Is it Opportunity?
Opportunity.
Okay, this was sent back by the Opportunity rover. And it seems to show, if you look at the boxed area, some sort of structured, segmented object. Could you give us some background onto what the sort of popular judgment of this object is?
A lot of people have come up and said that it's a crinoid. I'm saying that right.
Crinoid?
Crinoid.
Yeah.
And because of the apparent
the segmentation.
segmentation on it, we see there.
Yeah, down through here.
Down through there, right.
Okay. And it does appear that it curls under.
Curls
as well.
up, yes.
Okay. Yeah, there does seem to be some kind of interesting structure going on here. When we talk about crinoids, though, we are talking about an earth organism, and that's what we see here. This next slide shows you what crinoid stems look like on Earth, and they are distinctly different than what we're seeing, and we should expect that. If this is a fossil, it shouldn't really resemble anything we've seen on Earth. So there is clearly some structure, but what seems to be missing in our Martian image is any remnants of any other animals or organisms. We just see the single item here, and typically in most of the fossilized remnants that we find, we see actually sometimes community of living organisms. Can you see anything else in this slide but that single?
Not at this time, but the image is probably taken from the tool before they. I'm sure you got the slide of where it actually bores in, so we don't know what's surrounding.
Right, the bigger picture.
Bigger picture of it.
Okay, so there could be
other things.
Now, we were talking about these possibly being fossils, and because of the locations that these rovers are exploring, has NASA ever said anything about fossils?
Well, on their last update on these things, they were talking about this area, and one of them, I'm not sure, he was a geologist, I'm not sure if he's part of NASA or JPL, but he came forward and said, if this is the place to look for fossils, this is it.
Okay.
So everybody is took off on that and say there's got to be more fossils there.
So the implication there being that if this is a fossil, we shouldn't be surprised if we come across others.
Right, but NASA has not come forward and saying this is a fossil.
Right, they have been very guarded about
Yes.
that. And I think the notion is too that whether or not this is a fossil makes no difference. You're still in an environment where if you're going to find fossils, you hope to find them.
Yes.
One other kind of detail that seems to be also missing in the Martian thing is a clear indication that these the background sediments and the fossil itself are very different textures and very different materials, and we don't seem to see that here. Can you maybe make some justification?
It could be, like I said before, it's just the size of this. We don't really know the size.
Actual scale.
The actual scale of it. Also, erosion. We don't know where we're at on the bedrock that this was taken back.
Right.
So this could be...
and I guess we could still, because since part of the process of cleaning off the rock could mean that this entire rock is covered by a single color of dust, and we have to knock that dust off to see the difference in those two textures. Okay, let's take a further look here. I think probably if there's a closer match to any kind of earth organism, it's these nautiloids, because they do show that segmentation, but they also show that curvature that we noted in the earlier image. Geologists themselves often have trouble here on Earth in determining whether or not something they've discovered is a fossil. And here we have an image that, to the untrained eye, could be part of a dinosaur bone. It could be a collection of small organisms that have been lithified over the years. But actually, these are nothing more than mineral concretions held together by limestone. And this, I think, is probably one of the more interesting concretions that you can find. It looks like a petrified finger. And in fact, I think originally when this was discovered, it was offered as a fossil of a human finger. And, dating that rock would mean human beings were alive millions and millions of years ago. But as you can see, it's simply that the outside layer of the concretion is cracked away to expose the underlying rock. This would be considered a pseudofossil. This is a community of fossils. We've got itty-bitty things that look like sand dollars, and of course broken shells that we normally see in any kind of collection of ocean bottom or sea bottom fossils. Our next slide, fossils or not?
No.
No, we actually
They're
have
actual
coral.
fossils?
Yeah, we've got some fossilized coral. That's what these clumps are over on the left. And then broken shells. In fact, this piece of sedimentary rock makes up a wall in my driveway. We move on. Fossil or not?
I'm going to say no again.
This is not a fossil. But with all the texture, you're thinking...
I'll just say no through all.
Yeah.
I'll be safe.
But you can see all these concretions, and again, these little beads of minerals that are stuck together by limestone. Fossil or not?
No.
Okay, that was good. Although this looks like a collection of shells that might be stuck together, it's actually a mineral called barite. And this is particularly interesting because it doesn't look like a crystal that we would normally expect. And finally, this one. This is really not a fossil. This is probably the one that looks the most like a fossil, but again, it's just mineral deposition and degradation of the rock. This is actually a piece of volcanic rock, so fossils don't normally occur, or can't actually occur in volcanic rock. And that brings us, though, quickly back to Mars and some of the more legitimate things that we've discovered. The Beagle Orbiter, I believe it's called, the European Space Agency, has detected methane in the atmosphere of Mars. And there are two possibilities. Active volcanism, now, from what I have read, I don't know about you, we haven't detected any active volcanic...
Correct.
Right. Then that leaves the other possibility of organic breakdown, that microbes are digesting whatever they are and putting off as waste some methane gas.
Or, there's another possibility.
What's that?
It's ancient life.
Ancient life?
Like oil.
Oh, so they're thinking that maybe we could be seeing fossil fuels and the gases are...
coming from it.
Well, that's just as encouraging.
Yes, it is.
So we need to look deeper into the dirt and see if we can find organisms. Perhaps they'll look something like these, which are found in the Antarctic. And interestingly enough, they resemble the what seem to be organisms that were recovered from a Martian meteorite back in 1984. Very intriguing to see how these bacteria look so similar. And that pretty much ends our presentation on those Martian mysteries. Let's move now to what I think is probably one of the more interesting cases that has developed, I think, in the past decade or so here. We don't often spend a whole lot of time investigating abduction cases as part of the UFO Update agenda. But Donnie Blessing recently has uncovered a case which I find intriguing, and it has a lot of interesting details that I think Donnie can fill us in on. Mm-hmm. And I think you've also brought some audio.
Yes, I have. I kind of, before we play the audio real quick, I kind of want to tell you a little bit about how I met this gentleman. He called me, it was about a year ago. He called me and he was interested in a program, and we got to talking. And he said to me, he says, by the way, he says, do you do anything with people who think they might have been abducted? I've talked to this gentleman off and on, and I finally said to him, would you be interested in like maybe doing a regression, a hypnosis session to see if we can find out if what you saw or heard was either a dream, whether you had sleep paralysis, let's see if we can get to the bottom of this.
Now, when you say sleep paralysis, what exactly are you talking about?
Well, there is a condition that sometimes, I don't think it's real common, but there is a condition where when somebody might wake up, they can't move. And it's a real thing. It's not something about aliens or anything like that. It's a real condition, and it can happen to people. It scares them. Mm-hmm. But if they lay there for a few minutes and they're able to start moving, I think what happens is maybe they wake up real quick and the rest of their body isn't in tune with them, and the body has to catch up with their mind so that they can move.
Is it sort of like initially a semi-conscious state then?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah, and you might, and another thing that we kind of thought about at this point was that it might be a lucid dream. Mm-hmm. He also did talk to a psychologist. Mm-hmm. We went to his house and talked to him, interviewed him, and he did talk to a psychologist. The psychologist, after he talked to him for about 45 minutes, said that he's not crazy. He says, I really don't know what's wrong with this. He said, you know, I don't know exactly what this guy experienced, but from talking to him for the 45 minutes that I talked to him, he seems perfectly normal and sane to me.
Sure.
So that was basically, and of course the psychologist would like to talk to him after all of this has happened to him with the regression. He wants to actually go back and talk to him again.
Okay.
And so maybe we can play this little bit of this tape of the regression now. Would
Sure,
that be okay?
Yeah, we can listen to that, and maybe you can then give us some kind of context for what we hear.
All right.
We hear.
I don't see anyone, but it's like I sense.
Mm-hmm. You sense that there's something there?
Yes.
Is there something stopping you from looking?
I thought as if it was.
I want you in your mind to ask whatever it is that you're feeling or sensing is there. If you could have permission to look farther and let me know what you're told or what you sense.
All that I keep seeing is eyes and head.
Can you describe them to me?
The eyes are oval, shiny, and wet looking.
And
I sense that I'm moving up slowly, and I turn my head to the right, but I can only go so far. And I sense that I'm not supposed to look any further. I can't look it.
can you ask why you're not supposed to look?
No. No.
I wonder if there's something you're not supposed to see. Do you have any sense of that at all?
The only thing I could think of is someone or something is just behind me to my right that I'm not supposed to.
Okay. All right, I want you to move. Go ahead.
Am I really?
Am I really what?
I don't know. I can see myself going into the bottom of a spacecraft. I don't know if it's imagination or not, but I've never been able to do that before. I'm standing.
Mm-hmm.
I can only see one to my right and back a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Can you describe what you see?
Just a little person, alien.
Just remember you're safe.
We enter the bottom. We enter the bottom.
And what happens after you enter the bottom?
I don't know.
Just take a minute, look around, describe it.
No, just standing there. I can't really see anything.
Are you alone now, or do you sense that you're still not alone?
I'm not alone. But it's not like I'm doing anything either.
Have you been there before, since whether this is the first time or if you've been in a similar place before?
Many.
Why don't you mentally ask them what they want?
Communicate. They want to communicate.
Okay.
That was very interesting. I'd like to comment on this because what basically happened when he went through the regression session was some of the blank spots in the story that he told me were filled in. Mm-hmm. And he said he saw the light, and of course in the regression he said that he went up in the light. He actually went up into it and went into a spacecraft. He also went on and said that he was put on a table and examined. Mm-hmm. So
it did seem as though, even though for the most part he was speaking in the typical kind of hypnotic monotone, it did seem that when he was talking about the interacting with the alien, that his speech pattern kind of showed a little stress.
Yes.
Even though I couldn't hear any change in the tone, it's just the way he was trying to get his sentence across. It seemed to indicate some extra stress there.
There was in the whole tape, if you listen to the whole tape, there was different places. There was actually a couple of places where he was agitated. Mm-hmm. At one point, he said the room was dark, and he got agitated and said, "This is not right, this is not right. I can't see in the room. I can't see," and he did say the word people in the room, so I found that interesting.
As opposed to aliens?
Right, he said people.
Now, was the hypnotherapist able to delve into that a little bit yet?
Actually, she didn't really stop on that. They kept moving on to other parts of the regression. This gentleman wants to be regressed again because at the very end of this tape, we found one very interesting fact, and that was he has been taken since he was 11.
Okay.
And that is brought out at the very end of the tape where he says he walks out with his cousin and his brother. They go to the right, he goes to the left, and he sees an alien. And
Now,
he's 11 years old at the time.
being taken young like that, is that an unusual part of an abduction, or?
Actually, no. Actually, no. As a matter of fact, a lot of the abductions, and if you read anything on the subject at all, a lot of things they'll tell you is they start from childhood and actually will go through the person's adult life and branch out into the family. They get married, they have children, and I've read stories where they said the children were being abducted too.
Now, he also, because as you said at the end of the session, some implication that other people were present. Is that something also that we find in other abduction cases?
Actually, I have read stories from books on UFOs that they said that they actually saw other human beings aboard the spacecraft. Now, we don't know if this was a slip of the tongue and maybe he meant alien and said people. We don't know at this point.
Right.
We are going to go back. He does want to be regressed. He wants to see if he can remember any other incidents in his life. Plus, he wants to find out what happened to his brother, what happened to his cousin. He did not see them through the hypnosis session. He did not see them aboard the spacecraft. And so he wants to go back and see if he can find out what happened to them.
And finally, just sort of as far as the witness himself, have you been able to determine any kind of prior interest or exposure to abduction literature or movies like Fire in the Sky? Or?
Well, actually, he was not interested as much. I mean, he had read UFO books and things, but once he had this experience, and he does remember the time when he was 11, but he didn't know what happened. He just said he remembers his parents yelling for him, and they were really mad when he showed up like an hour later, him and his brother and cousin. And, of course, at that point, he really didn't think too much about it, but he has become interested more in the subject after this period where he said that he was outside the house. He's become much more interested and is reading a lot more literature now on it to see if he can find out anything else that may have, may be like what something that happened to him.
Now, how old is this witness now?
He's 48.
48. So this is an experience that's been ongoing for 37 years for him.
Apparently, and like I said, we want to try to uncover some other experiences. We think that he's not totally satisfied. He's been searching for an answer. And it was interesting, the psychologist said that too. He said that he thought that this gentleman was searching for something, and he said, I don't know if it's a personal search, whether he has, if it's a psychological problem, that he's searching for something. But it's interesting that the psychologist said he's searching for something. And once we did the regression and everything, and we found out that he's searching for answers to what has been going on in his life.
That's fascinating, and I guess in a future program we'll get an update
Definitely.
on that.
I would like to come back and explore this more. As a matter of fact, I have about 4 more people that are lined up who want to go through this too, that they feel they may have been abducted. So this is going to be a long, ongoing thing, and hopefully in future episodes I can bring some more evidence forward, not only of this gentleman, but some of the other people that want to have this done.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a field trip to Indiana. And in this case, if you're a rock hound or a rock hunter, you're going to have to learn how to climb a tree, because that's where the rocks are in Indiana, as this segment will show you. These are interesting, very interesting photographs. This gives you an indication. I believe these objects are some 20 or 30, perched 20 or 30 feet up in these trees. And most of them probably weigh in excess of 80 or 90 pounds. And this one in particular, if you can see it in there, is quite solidly cradled into the nook, the crook of those branches. How could something like that get placed up in a tree that high? Obviously, the tree was mature by the time that the rock was put up. You put a rock that size on a young sapling, and it'll just bend it over and break it. So, I mean, obviously the tree had to be of some size before the rock was put up there.
My first impression when I first seen still photos of these is that they were probably placed up there by block and tackle.
Okay,
And,
well, it says here no scuff marks, and you would expect something, wouldn't you?
You would think so. would think so.
Now, I don't know if you know a whole lot about regeneration of tree bark. Are we expecting scuff marks because we're assuming this is something that happened recently?
Yes, that could be a good possibility. Another thing too that first hit my mind why they were there is probably I thought they were used for hunting purposes. For hunting for deer, they could up the tree.
Yeah.
Yes, and,
It's possible. Well, who would have put them there? Do you think?
Local hunters.
I mean, within the recent or within colonial times, or
Yes. Yes.
so you think? And this one is particular. You can see that there's some formation of those branches around the rock, so it's been sitting there a while.
Yeah.
Now, I know you're doing some investigations into local Indian cultures. You've been an ongoing investigation into Serpent Mound and Fort Ancient. In your studies, have you ever come across any kind of artifact like this that indigenous native cultures
No.
have tried to do? So we're not seeing
Not
any
up in a
kind
tree.
of we're not seeing any kind of ritual placement of this stone.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know where their geographical locations are, but
Right. Well, yeah, it's
I know that's in
right, Indiana. But,
Indiana.
Yeah.
But anything up in trees, I haven't heard anything.
yeah, that's a fascinating shot there. It really gave you an idea of how
To me,
high
it looked
those
like
things are.
it was a platform for somebody to
It almost does
sit
look
up
like
there.
a tree stand. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just yeah, nice and sturdy one, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on a budget,
yeah, just take what you can find.
yes, drag it up there and haul it up there. My question is, it'd be nice to take some ring samples of the
Of the trees,
trees.
get some kind of core and maybe get some
Right.
idea of of how old the trees are. Right, that would make some sense because if the trees are only say 80 years old, how old is a tree when it matures, and then you can kind of figure out just about when
Right.
something like that was placed in the tree. That would
The
make
only
some
other
sense.
possibility, which it's kind of remote, is tornado. They have a tendency to pick things up
Yeah,
and lay
they can.
things
Oh,
down.
sure, they can. Yeah, I would think though that the force
Would
would
have
have
effect
probably
on the tree too.
broken the limbs.
Yeah, that's true.
Because a tornado will move,
right up.
in hundreds of miles an hour.
Right.
The winds will gust that much, and it can really toss something at a great velocity. Okay, thank you for your input, Dale, and I appreciate you having joined us for this program. Now, Donnie, another current case that has stirred up a good deal of interest has to do with some emergency 911 tapes. Is that correct?
Yes. As a matter of fact, this was another case that came our way. I believe it was around the beginning of March. I think it was somewhere around the 7th, 8th of March. This is an interesting case in that what happened, apparently, now this is what we've heard. This was a man and woman said that they saw a UFO-like object come down. It headed towards where they lived, and there was some power lines there. This object came towards the power lines, and they hit that, went back up, and they did like a deja vu, done it again, and went back up. Now, so we're going to play the 911 tape here for you now.
Okay.
And this is going to be the calls that came in to the police station about what happened that day.
Center of Police.
Yeah, this is a non-emergency call.
Okay.
I'm over on South the Road, and you probably had other people call you, but I just want to make sure our electricity keeps flickering. And I keep seeing out the window the skylight up and something loud, like a transformer humming. Have you been made aware of that?
No, nobody's called on that. Okay. Is it behind your residence that you're seeing this, or?
Actually, it lights up the entire sky.
Okay.
And it is not anywhere where I can see it. So
Okay.
it sounds like
I'm sorry. Let me get this 911 call, sir. Just
Sure.
a moment. 911, police, fire, medical.
Yes, my name's Dennis Lewis, 174 Linden Drive, Centerville.
Yes.
We're getting loud or large electrical flashes off the power supply system behind our house.
Okay. Can you see? I just have on the other line. I have someone from Bethel Road. Bethel. And he's seeing the same thing. Is your electricity flickering?
Yes, it comes on and off, and we're getting like a huge flash, and it's done it about 4 times. Big
A
orange
flash. where, outside?
Yes, outside. The lights just all came back on again.
Okay. I mean, is it from your backyard? Do you think it's immediately in your
We think it's
line,
immediately.
or?
We think it's immediately close. I was trying to call VPNL, but theirs is a huge computerized, no-person phone line.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
And,
I haven't been able to see it actually arc. We just see a huge flash.
okay, we're going to send someone out, okay, sir?
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Goodbye. My other call was about the same thing. He lived on Linden Drive, and he is seeing flashing maybe by his tree line.
Yeah.
Okay. What? I'm sorry. I have another 911 call.
Okay, bye-bye.
What's your address on Bethel?
105.
105. Thank you, sir. Bye. 911, please fire medical.
Has the whole street called?
No, no, sir. What is this about? Okay.
The whole street. The electricity is going on and off, and there's really...
What is your address? I'm getting more phone calls on this.
Okay, 166 Lakeview.
Okay. All right.
Holy crap! There's something in the sky.
All right. Okay. Just one moment, sir. 911.
Yes, my name is John McKeith, and I'm calling from Stone Lake Drive.
Okay. All right. About flashing?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. All right. Okay, we're going to check this out, sir.
Okay, we're not the first to call then.
No, sir.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye. 911, Centerville, please.
Yes, do you happen to know what's going on in our neighborhood?
No, we're having an officer in the area. What is your address?
157 Brad Street. I tried to call DP&L, but it's automated.
Do you see exactly where it's coming from?
Well, if I look out my kitchen window, looking up towards the
Is that
school,
your, I'm sorry, what school?
Stingley, and it looks, the sky just lit up pink.
Okay. All right, towards Stingley.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh my God.
Oh, hello?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I've had about 10 calls since then.
What did they say?
Everybody's just saying the same thing. The last person is on Brad Street, and she's saying it's more towards Stingley.
I saw it.
Okay.
We both, my wife and I both saw it. It was right outside our window.
Right, okay. And your address again, sir?
166 Lakeview.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. I've got about 10 streets
Are they
here.
saying it's the same thing that I'm saying it is?
Yes.
It looked like a freaking alien ship.
Right, yes.
And it blew up like, it was like a bomb going off.
Okay, was it pink?
It was
Or
light.
Lady said it was pink.
No, it was going to the power lines, but it hovered in. It came, I sound like I'm insane right now. I can't believe I'm saying this. It hovered down over the school, and it was spinning lights and flashing.
Okay.
It came down all the way, like over the school towards my house.
Okay.
And then it would just go,
All right.
boom, and
Okay.
all the electricity would go off in this giant
Okay.
flame
All right.
ball in the sky.
Okay. All right. I need to get going and let the officers know, okay?
Okay?
All right. Thank you. Goodbye.
I couldn't help but be struck how much it was like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where everybody's reporting this, that, and the other thing, and the lights of the town start flickering and going off. That's an astonishing sequence of calls. This is Kenny Young, local researcher and investigator, and this is something you've been working on. Have you been able to piece together how the duration of, assuming this is a single sighting being reported by other witnesses, have you been able to figure out the duration of that sighting?
It started shortly after 5, and it was an object that this gentleman described would appear over a field. Mm-hmm. It would take a path over a lake and stop over the school where it would explode. And then at that point it would explode, it would reappear. The same object or a second object would reappear back over the field, follow the same path. This happened, I think, for about 15 minutes or so, and this was during the time all the calls were coming in.
Okay.
After the fire department was on the scene, the trees were still burning with glitter, an unusual type of effect that I don't know what that was or what that could be, but
sometimes it depends on the tree, I guess. Mm-hmm. What kind of little sap and stuff that's in there. But I'm curious, what luck do you think you're going to be having in trying to track down witnesses that you can collect some?
Well, we've done quite a bit of on this already. There's been some legwork put behind it. We've also done a lot of background working sources. We've worked this case pretty extensively, and I don't know that we're going to find too much else that we have on it. Right now, like I say, we just have one witness on the record that we have talked with and interviewed who has described a UFO, and he just described this object as a saucer-shaped aircraft with alternating sets of rotating lights.
I was curious because when a transformer blows, it goes quick. It doesn't take 15 minutes. Well, thanks. I mean, this is really fascinating, and when you get more information, you know where you can bring it. Now, what other cases can we talk about at this point?
Well, like Donnie said, we have plenty. There's been a lot of sightings locally.
What about, have we had any recent creature sightings of any sort?
Yes, and we have had one reported to us from a place near Versailles, Indiana. There's been actually two in that area. One on North Hogan Road, which we thought was very interesting. The story came to the attention of our producer, Bob Leibold, of Natural Light Productions. Through working some contacts that Bob made, we got in touch firsthand with the witness to this. A gentleman reported a very unusual creature in Indiana along a southern Indiana roadway. And the sighting was pretty strange. We had the witness help us furnished to us some photographs that we were able to put on the internet and analyzing the claim. And interestingly, as a side note to this, there was a similarly described creature also reported from Missouri a month earlier.
Okay.
And we'll roll a video clip of that.
Okay.
I'm an investigator with the Missouri UFO Investigators Group, and we sometimes request follow-up reports with the National UFO Reporting Center. The Missouri case involved two witnesses that were traveling on a two-lane highway in a pickup truck late one night on December 9th, 2003. Well, suddenly something crossed the road in front of them, which the driver said it looked like a deer to him. And so he slowed down the truck, assuming that there might be more deer. And then they noticed something running besides the truck near the passenger window. And they couldn't figure out what it was, and then it moved ahead of the truck and it was running on the grassy shoulder of the highway. The passengers of the truck and the driver became very excited and saying, "What's that? What's that?" Because at that moment they realized it wasn't a deer, because it was kind of moving funny. The legs were moving really quickly, and it was bent over, sort of like a bent over human, but running very fast. The passenger, who's the one I interviewed on the phone, said it was so weird because the legs were moving like a scurrying motion, like a cockroach would. And I asked him, did you notice any arms and legs moving at that moment? He said no. It was moving so quick he couldn't tell what it was. It was so strangely shaped. Well, the driver became so excited, he started accelerating. He wanted to get away from whatever it was. And so they passed it, and when they passed it, they looked through the rear window of the truck and the side view mirror, and they could still see it in the red taillights of the truck. Well, the passenger said he looked out the window again, and there it was, right beside the side of the truck. And he said it was sort of bent over, and then it suddenly moved right in front of the truck in the roadway, and the headlights had it. And I asked him what the color of the being was, and he described it as a dull gray color. And I said, "Did you ever see a face or a head on it?" And he said, "Well, I never saw the face, but the head sort of like a helmet covering the top of the body of the creature." I said, "What happened next?" He said, "Well, it came from a bent over position to almost a stand up position, and it was so skinny, it just shocked him." Last week I read about the Indiana case that Kenny Young investigated, and I couldn't believe the similarities of the case between Missouri and Indiana. The way the witnesses described the shape of the being so skinny that its legs appeared to be bent outwardly, and in the Missouri witness I spoke to described them as cockroach legs. I try to keep open-minded on reports such as these and hopefully get to interview the witnesses directly. But more and more of these reports are coming forward by the people, and they just want to know what's going on and what's happening.
Okay, that was really quite fascinating. Is there anything else you could add to give us some background?
Well, I can only tell you that I'm taking this information and I'm more or less trying to document it. And when I get done with it, I kind of put it out there and put it out of my mind. But I'm not really believing what I'm writing a lot of times, because I will.
You sound like that guy on the call.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, sometimes I don't stop to really look back and think about what I just put together here.
Right.
Because if this guy is being honest with me, and I don't have any reason to think he's lying to me, we've got some interesting activity taking place that we don't have a good explanation for.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I'd like just to add something here, that the case out in Missouri where they saw this thing, it was running, keeping up with the car, actually got ahead of the car. And first thing that popped in my mind, Mothman, because if you read anything about Mothman, people, they said that this creature would actually chase them down in a car.
Sure.
So,
Donnie, now, I think as interesting as the abduction case we talked about appears to be, I believe you have something that's actually even more bizarre.
I would call it very bizarre, because this was blood-curdling screams that came from a wooded area in Moorhead, Kentucky, and there was a UFO spotted at the exact time that this happened. This was November of last year. We actually got this report off the National UFO Reporting Center with Peter Davenport. I saw this, and when I looked at it, it looked like it was something that would have come from the police or fire department. This was the way it was sent in to Peter. Sure. It didn't look like it came in from a private citizen, the way the language they used. So it caught my attention, and I actually sent the case to Kenny. Kenny looked at it and he says, I think we should get involved in this one, because this may involve the police or the fire right from the get-go. So we do have some video here to get going on this. Are we ready to roll that?
Moorhead sits nestled among the foothills and tall pines of eastern Kentucky. The lifestyle is relaxed, and the hustle and bustle of a big city is many miles away. But for a few hours on November 21st, 2003, that peaceful tranquility would be replaced by confusion and fear. A strange event would grip this Kentucky town. A University of Kentucky psychologist, along with his two sons, were driving home near Adams Lane.
What is that?
They saw a bright light in the northwestern sky. The soundless aerial object hovered over a nearby open field, and a sense of apprehension was upon the professor and his sons.
What is that?
This gentleman lives way up on a hill, very wooded, very isolated, and I could see where there would be few witnesses to this. I believe, and this is just my belief, I believe that the witnesses that we interviewed in this particular case are all credible.
The UK professor and his sons ran indoors, with some concern making their way to the second-story window, where they continued to watch this object
course, Kenny Young made the first contact with the first witness, and I kept digging until I found a second witness who lived right down the road. And the second witness described something very similar. She said her and her daughter were out putting up Christmas tree lights, and she said they turned around and they saw this object, and it was popping up and going down. She said it was a light, and she said it reminded her of popcorn, going up and coming down. Her daughter became very frightened, and she told her to go in the house. This object came down. It turned several colors from orange to red, and as it touched the ground, this is when the dog went wild and started barking like crazy.
As the object seemed to touch down near Adams Lane, animals in the neighborhood erupted into a mad frenzy. Suddenly, the object shot off like a dart and disappeared into the western skies. Immediately after the object departed, blood-curdling screams could be heard in the night.
Please, somebody help me! Help me! Oh God, somebody please help me! Help me! Oh God, please, somebody help me!
One person on nearby Skaggs Road heard the screams and called the police.
Moorhead 911.
Yeah, I live at 472 Skaggs Road, and there's a big giant field back behind my house, and I could swear I heard somebody screaming back there, and it sounded like they were struggling, and it was backed up the hill, like if you're looking at the hill off of Skaggs Road, it was back up to the left.
So, okay, you're at 472 Skaggs Road. If they're standing in front of your residence, where is it at?
If they're standing in front looking at my house, it's back up to the left. Adams Road, Adams Road's right there too. It sounded like it was coming up there from there off Adams Road.
You think it's like in the area of Adams Road?
Yeah.
And it sounds like a female struggling?
I swear it sounded. My dog started barking. I walked outside. I got my spotlight out, and I couldn't see anybody in the field.
Soon afterwards, the field where the screams emanated was crawling with police, fire and rescue searchers.
We got a direct call in as female subject screaming for help.
Thermal imaging was used to try to locate the woman, but nothing was found, and the search was called off.
He said that it sounded like the most horrifying, blood-curdling scream that he had ever heard. It sounded like somebody was being ripped apart, just totally ripped apart. There has to be some connection. You know, over the years, there's been people talked about abductions and being abducted, and of course I've read about things in books, but I never experienced it firsthand as far as being able to talk to somebody who actually heard this. And I would say yes. It's not common. It's not a very common thing. You don't hear these type of reports of somebody screaming blood-curdling screams and a UFO being spotted at the exact same time. It sounds like somebody was hurt. So, you know, I think about it often. I think about, is that lady, is she alive? Is she in Moorhead? Is she from somewhere else? Is she still around? Does she remember what happened later? And she's saying, you know, what happened to me, and can I tell anybody?
The Moorhead, Kentucky case will remain a curious and puzzling episode without firm resolution. An unidentified flying object was observed, and from the same location in the field, desperate and blood-curdling screams were heard in the night. A police search yielded no answers. Lives have been affected, and disturbing questions have been raised. We have no real answers to the strange events in Moorhead, Kentucky, in November of 2003.
Wow. What happened there at the end?
Okay, at the very end, what basically the lady that we interviewed, when we went up to talk to her, she woke up the next morning from this incident, and she only saw the UFO, she claims, with a nosebleed.
Huh. And
she
that's
said,
significant because of what?
Because people who say they've been abducted will have nosebleeds.
Okay.
And also the reason for the clock was she had 3 clocks to die in her house immediately after the sighting of the UFO.
Wow. That's, it is bizarre,
Yes.
as we promised.
It's a puzzling case, and I have to tell you, it's a very interesting case. It's not, it has not been a fun case
No.
to research. It's nothing glamorous about this. There's clearly a problem.
Right.
Somebody was in distress here.
Mm-hmm.
And we do know that from the record. We do know from eyewitness interviews that the object was reported in the
Sure.
area. We can assemble this information
Right.
in a chronological time frame as we have done, but we don't have any answers to give you.
Well, that is something. I know you've been working on other cases, and something that's been sort of a long-term project of yours is traditionally called the Norwood case. I believe you've got an update on that we're going to be looking at.
Okay, we're going to try to put a focus on getting some people who know about the Norwood case, if they would come forward and help us.
Right.
We're trying to track down some witnesses to this. We have been for years, in fact, and really it's like there's an old saying in the UFO community about some of the older cases, it's a race against the undertaker.
Right.
Because it's such an old case. But I think there could be some people out there who have first-hand information, who are witnesses, who could help us out, and that would be really helpful if they can come forward and contact us. And we do have that number on the screen where they can track us down.
Let's take a look.
The Norwood UFO situation is an outstanding series of 10 visual sightings of an unidentified flying object. Events that took place in or near the Norwood, Ohio area from August 19th of 1949 until March 10th of 1950. The alleged observation of a massive object by searchlight operator Donald R. Berger, and meticulously detailed in his logs, remain one of the more curious events in UFO history. The words "free entertainment" and "fun for a nickel" were the headlines found in Cincinnati area newspapers announcing the Jitney Carnival of 1949 at the St. Peter and Paul Church on Drex Avenue in Norwood, Ohio. The church had rented an 800 million candle-power searchlight from an Army surplus depot. Its beams strolled through the dark mid-August night skies, hoping to seduce the public to attend the festive gala. Army Sergeant Donald R. Berger was on hand to operate the powerful searchlight for the church festival. Berger later recorded in his logs that he picked up a space platform. The following morning, those attending the festival in Norwood would learn that the entire Cincinnati area had also been visited by comets and fireballs. The case is exceptional not simply due to the dramatic nature of the events, but due to the high caliber of persons involved. The series of incidents were witnessed by civilians, by clergy, by scientists, by police officers, and by military officials.
It made like I said, sort of made a believer out of me, but I didn't boast about it because, a lot of people think you're cuckoo when you talk about flying saucers, but I didn't know what it was, and I still don't know what it was, but it was something. It was something.
The Norwood UFO situation is an outstanding series of 10 visual sightings of an unidentified flying object. Events that took place in or near the Norwood, Ohio area from August 19th of 1949 until March 10th of 1950. We not only have a full-blown mystery in the skies above Norwood, but now have what seems to be an interesting cabal of noted observers plotting and purposefully seeking to lure the strange object into the searchlight beam on the Norwood grounds. The photos and movie film of the Norwood object make this case a most compelling one. The photos taken by Norwood Police Sergeant Leo Davidson were kept in the files at the Norwood Police Department until sometime in the mid-'80s when they were last seen at a Norwood Kiwanis Club meeting. The motion picture film was last seen in the possession of Reverend Gregory Miller and shown to an eager crowd at WCPO Channel 9 News in Cincinnati. The information contained on those photos is shocking, and analysis of the frame grabs by present-day computer methods are quite revealing. This startling event must not be lost to history. This documentary is an effort to preserve the strange but true account of a tremendous and unidentified object seen in the skies over Norwood, Ohio in 1949. To this day, the authenticity of the UFO situation is unacknowledged by our military and elected officials. If movement towards official UFO disclosure might someday take place for some future generation, perhaps the important details of what happened at Norwood in 1949 will finally be realized.
Solid piece of investigation, and it's and as you tell us, that's going to be an ongoing race against the undertaker until we finally get all the information that we really need to nail this one down. Well, I really appreciate the work that you've done on this, and Kenny, thank you for being here. Donnie, again, the cases you've brought to our attention have been amazing, to say the least. And both of you deserve a round of applause for the amount of work that you have put into these cases. Again, thank you to Dale Farmer, who also joined us earlier, for helping us investigate some of these mysteries that puzzle us in our everyday lives. And for all of us here at UFO Update, the best defense against being fooled is being informed. Thank you.